All right, this thing is live. So welcome everybody, or everybody who's going to watch this later. All right, so I'm doing this a day early just because I have stuff going on this weekend. Tomorrow is the beginning of Create's 48-hour film festival. I signed up to do it. I think it's going to be fun, so what the hell, right? So I'm going to just jump right into it. It's all city council stuff this week, which means next week it will be more of like a free form, just discussion time, I guess. And holy cow, there was a lot of stuff that happened in the council this week. A lot of drama. Good grief. It's been a blessing, really, to have all of these personalities on the council that are really kind of at the center of all the local drama lately, like Melissa Johnson and the mayor and Tori Jennings. Those are the main ones. Like they're all, like it seems like there's always something going on with those three that just, look, God bless all three of you, because I would have literally nothing to ever talk about if you guys didn't have all this stuff going on all the time. And we got a little bit more of that for the council meeting this month. And every year after an election cycle, for those of you who don't know, what happens is there's a reorganization of the council and the committees that takes place, where the mayor basically appoints people to the committees. And there's a lot of, I don't know, there's not a lot of, everybody usually just votes on whoever the mayor's picks are, and that's fine. But Tori Jennings has not been happy. Not this year, not the last year when this happened. So we're going to talk about that. That's going to be fun. But I mean, I'm just going to dive right into it because there's kind of a lot to talk about, and I really want to get this done in an hour. And I talk a lot, you know that. Try not to get sidetracked at all. Just stick to my notes. Just going to power through this. So the mayor always has time to speak before these council meetings. And this month, he told us that they're going to do in-person meetings again, which means those of you out there who like to show up at these meetings and give them hell, God bless you for doing that. You'll be able to start doing that again. You know, I'll probably show up to a few of them too. I hate these things, but yeah, I'll probably show up to a few of them throughout the year too. I've been waiting for this to happen, for the in-person meetings to start. So they're going to partially start doing it next month. And by June, they plan on having full in-person meetings, well, according to the mayor. So again, that's going to have contingencies attached to it regarding how like COVID is doing. Like if there's not a spike or anything, they'll start doing it, which, I mean, it's really time to get over the whole COVID thing, guys. It's kind of over at this point, which brings me to the next point, because the mayor goes right into talking about the in-person meetings that they have planned. And here's the one thing I'm going to take issue with him in this council meeting, is that he decided to give the public a lecture and say, basically, if you don't start taking your vaccines and you don't start wearing your masks and you don't start social distance, basically all the things everybody's been doing for the last year, if we don't start doing this, or if we don't keep doing it, then we're not going to get our events this year either. And he goes on to say that, you know, it's just like we would do during any flu outbreak or smallpox. I remember a lot of flu outbreaks over the years. I don't seem to remember everybody masking, no less. I don't remember events being closed because of the flu. I remember massive outbreaks ripping through the country and killing anywhere between 40 and 70,000 people every single year. And I don't remember people panicking about it. But like he just kind of threw that out there like that's something we always do during a flu outbreak. And it's very 1984 almost, you know, like those of you who read the book know that part of the story is that the regime has this thing called the memory hole. In fact, that was, I believe that was the main character. That was his job, was to get rid of unfavorable information. Like if the regime ever changed its mind, it would have to get rid of the past so that people could never question it, could never say, oh, wait a minute, but you said this and it was wrong. That's what it feels like here. It feels like he's saying, oh, we've always done this, so it shouldn't be any different, but we haven't. And I have a feeling based on that, and I don't think the mayor meant this at all. This is just me kind of looking forward into the future. I think this is a sign of things to come. I think every year now, every time there's a flu outbreak, we're going to have flu emergencies, or, it'll probably be COVID emergencies, because COVID's not going away. It's going to be here forever. So anytime there's like outbreaks of new variants and things like that, I think there's going to be these, let's just call them germ emergencies, whether it's the flu or COVID or what. And it's going to be like snow emergencies, right? Like we issue a snow emergency and you got to take all your cars off the road. In the future, in the not too distant future, it's going to be the same thing with the flu. And everybody's going to be required to mask up. They're going to declare emergency. Everybody's going to be forced to mask and social distance and all this stuff. This is going to go on in perpetuity. I mean, at this point, I see no other way forward. The people that are scared to death, that have been scared to death of this the entire time, are going to keep this thing going forever and ever. And the mayor very much seems to be in that camp. Unfortunately, I wish, he would be cognizant enough to basically look at these health officials and look at what they've been saying over the last year. And first of all, realize everything that they've predicted has been wrong, has been completely wrong. And yet he is going to apparently still follow them in lockstep. Now, I don't know about you, but if somebody is consistently wrong about everything all the time, I stop listening to the person. All right. That goes for the CDC. Like, I don't care if these people are the experts or the government, and we can't question the government. Well, you can question the government. You are an adult. You have a mind. You can assess your own risk, okay, when it comes to this stuff. You don't need to follow the county health department, which is wrong all the time, all the way to your grave. You don't have to do that. You can not do that. Apparently the mayor thinks we can't. He's just going to say, he's going to lecture us and tell us, if you don't do this, children, we're going to take all your events away. Kind of like, it's almost like he's like a parent threatening to ground up. No, exactly what this is like. This is like Silence of the Lambs, with the scene where the girl's in the pit and Buffalo Bill, lowers her some lotion into this pit, and he says, what's the line? It puts the lotion on the skin, or else it gets the hose again. That's what this feels like. I feel like the mayor's sitting there, we're all the girl in this pit, and he's Buffalo Bill, and he's like, it puts the mask on its skin, or it gets its events taken away again. That's exactly how this is. Look, Mayor, we're not kids. We can all assess our own risk. We all have the data to see that none of your masking effort. That was another thing he said. If this happens where, we get a spike in COVID, and you know what, we probably will, then we'll have to go into another lockdown. There's European countries out there that have been going into their third and fourth lockdown. Never even dawns on him to step back and say, wait a minute, why are they going into their third and fourth lockdown? I mean, if this whole system is working so great, then why do we have to keep doing it? Never even asked that question. I doubt that question's ever crossed his mind, because I think he's just in a position where the authorities tell him what to do, and then he tells us what to do. I kind of think that's where it's at. Like, he's not curious enough to go out and be like, well, does this make any sense at all? Is this working? Because the answer is no. The answer is absolutely no. And we all have the information available to us. The lockdowns, the masks, never did a damn thing. And we have all the charts that you could ever want to prove that fact. There is zero correlation between COVID cases, masking, and lockdowns. Now, I don't know why people aren't happy about that. Aren't happy to say, oh man, all these dumb masks we've been wearing for a year, they don't do anything. So we can just toss them aside. We don't have to do this anymore. We don't have to do this stupid thing anymore. But the mayor's not that guy, I guess. He's not that kind of curious mind that actually wants to find out the truth of a matter. He is just an order taker. And he is transferring that onto the rest of us and just expects the rest of us to be order takers. Again, I'm an adult. I can assess my own risk. All right. I had COVID. All right. If anybody should know anything about it, it's me. And when I got it, exactly what I thought would happen happened. Pretty damn sick for a couple of days. Lost my sense of smell and my sense of taste for about a month. And that was several months ago. And I'm fine. Everything's fine. It wasn't the end of the world. And I mean, I can't believe he said something about smallpox too. Like, oh, well, we would do this in the case of smallpox. Well, it's still not going to stop a smallpox outbreak. But I mean, isn't smallpox gone? Hasn't it been gone for a long? Is this a fear we need to worry about in Stevens Point? Oh, okay. If a 15th century conquistador shows up to your front door and wants to give you a free blanket, maybe don't take it. All right. And that'll be the best way to avoid smallpox. All right. Solve that. So anyway, that was the one issue I really took with the mayor. I don't like being spoken down to. I don't like being condescended to. I don't like being treated like a child. Just put on the events, okay? And let people decide whether they want to go to these events or not. That's your only job as mayor, okay? You're not a superhero fighting this evil invisible germ. That's not your job. You can't, by the way. So anyway, that was my one thing. He also came out and if you watched my live stream from last week, you know there was a big blow up on the Public Works Board. The mayor was called out for not following Robert's rules, and I'm not exactly sure where he wasn't because it looked to me like he was, but Tori Jennings really took issue with that. Something happened behind the scenes, okay? I don't know what, but you know when they get together in these meetings, a lot of times you can see the tension there and you know something is going on. And the mayor came right out and said, going forward, we are going to strictly adhere to Robert's Rules of Order, which is the parliamentary procedure that they use for like everything. So he says, you know, we're going to do this. And right away I thought, okay, this had something to do with that. He didn't get into detail. He just said, this is the way it's going to be. That was it. And by the way, in this council meeting, he does kind of whip that out and be like, no, you can only speak twice under Robert's rules. He used that with Cindy Nebel. Thank God, because if anybody needs like strict application of Robert's rules, it was Cindy Nebel. And it's really too bad that they waited until her very last night to start doing that. Because my God, some of these issues, she can just go on and on and on and just never stop. Never. We're going to see that more later. So next up, all the alders get a chance to speak their mind on just whatever topic they want. Tori Jennings comes on and decides to rant about the mayor's power grabs. She did this last year too. She gave pretty much the same speech. Her points were that the mayor uses power to dominate meetings, uses leadership to influence discussion. I mean, so far I'm not seeing anything too terrible. And this behavior is normalized and unchallenged. It undermines the legislative the legislature, the legislature's authority. In other words, like her authority, to which I say, good. You shouldn't have any authority, Tori Jennings. Council allows his appointments to committees, and they don't ever challenge it. And like, I don't really know what her point. I mean, if the council allows his appointments and don't challenge it, isn't that the legislator practicing its authority in this case? They're just choosing not to do something, right? So, I mean, she's obviously got beef with the mayor, and she has for a long time. And she's trying to bring that up in a public forum again, just like she did last year. She doesn't like the mayor. She doesn't like how he does things. Whatever, it is what it is. It's just, whatever behind the scene drama is happening. Personally, I don't really care, but I'm always going to be on the mayor's side over Tori Jennings for sure. So, but honestly, I didn't see her point. I didn't understand what she was trying to say. She's basically just trying to make the mayor to look like some kind of totalitarian. And I don't see that in any of the committee meetings. I just don't. He would be if he actually shut down discussion and didn't allow people to talk and stuff like that. But he's always been very open about everything. And it's funny because there's so many instances in these meetings. Actually, it happened in this meeting too, where people would come on and just lace into him and, savage him in a public forum. I kind of did that a few minutes ago over the COVID thing, but people come into a public forum and do this as well. I take it much easier on the mayor than a lot of people do, but they'll come in and just call him all kinds of names and say he's evil and he's got all these crazy agenda, whatever it is. It just doesn't matter. But every time somebody speaks about the mayor like that, his response is always, okay, well, thank you for that. And then he just moves on to the next thing. It just completely rolls off him, which is kind of one of my favorite things about Mayor Weeza. He doesn't really ever look perturbed when people get very personal or, attack him on a personal level. So, I mean, I think it's funny, actually. Then Melissa Johnson comes on. She's got to give her remarks, of course, for getting blamed for the Carlson debacle. And she basically says everything that she said in her public release statement. Again, she lives in this world. She doesn't really understand that most people in town have no idea what's going on in city government. They don't even know who she is. But she lives in that world, and she feels like she has to release statements and do all this stuff. But basically, she said the same thing she said before, where, took the mayor to task for basically telling Ron Carlson that he wasn't going to get reappointed to the committee, and that just because she thinks that there needs to be more diversity doesn't mean that other people should be excluded from these committees. And she's right about that. I never took anything she ever said to mean that middle-aged white men were supposed to be excluded from committees. I never took anything she said that way. However, my number one complaint is that Melissa Johnson she's creating this environment. She is at the head of this march into this social justice warrior, world that she's trying to build. And this world is premised almost entirely upon skin color and genitals. That's really what it comes down to, right? She's leading the march on this. So I do think it's disingenuous that she stands back and she's like, oh, I want to wash my hands of this. I had nothing to do with it. Well, you kind of did, okay? Or I shouldn't say did, you kind of do, because you are leading this whole march into this whole realm of absurdity. If you subscribe to the Point Plover Metro Wire, they ran a open letter from Robin Falk, who has been attending these diversity and inclusion meetings and has been reporting how absolutely insane they are. So it's in the Point Plover Metro Wire. Go back, you can find it, read it. I think it's, kind of hilarious because, again, it just goes to show the complete ineptitude at every level of city government or every level of local government. This has been happening at the county level, not the city level yet that I know of. But yeah, it's craziness. So she comes on and she defends herself. And then, of course, because it's Cindy Nebel's last night, she has to finish off her statements with, it's been such a distinct honor to work with Cindy Nebel, blah, blah, blah. The typical platitudes that they give to every outgoing council member, which is kind of ridiculous to me. But anyway, yeah, so lots of drama all around, and they have to talk about the drama in these public forums and justify themselves and make sure that everybody in the public knows that they're on the right side, not the bad side that the mayor always seems to find himself on. He's always on the bad side. He was on the bad side with me tonight too, with the COVID thing. It wasn't the COVID thing. It was the condescending nature with which he approaches the public as though we're children. That's the thing I took issue with. But anyway, then most of it sails through a bunch of stuff. You had the Visitors Bureau come in to give a presentation on signage. This is the exciting stuff that you're missing if you don't follow city government, okay? You missed a wonderful presentation on signage in Stevens Point. And okay, to be honest, I found it interesting, all right? A lot of you would have found this just absolutely snooze-worthy. I get that, but I found it interesting in the sense that basically it's marketing 101. And this is going to lead to policy changes somewhere down the road. I 100% promise you. What they talked about was they wanted the signs to be more consistent in shape and color, especially when they're pointing directions at certain highlights in Stevens Point. Okay, fine, whatever. Again, this is going to be something that they're going to do at some point in the future. And everything just kind of sails through, nothing remarkable really to talk about, just another presentation, licensing, license renewals. Okay, so then it comes to this development agreement that the city's trying to reach with the owner of the Point Motel and the property that the old Maytag laundromat sits on. So basically the city is looking to buy and raise this Maytag building, and it's going to cost them about $500,000. And what they want to do is put a road through there, and what it's going to do is take away some of the university parking that's on the other side of the building. And they're just citing the usual strong town stuff where they want more walkability and this, that, and the other thing. Well, so a handful of people did call in to speak on this particular item, citing concerns over unnecessary costs and talking about how it was going to take away parking that's already limited, especially in District 3. So for all the complaining that you hear about people wanting parking issues solved, this ain't doing it. This is going to make more of a problem, apparently. Becky Cresson called in and she had some, what I thought were good ideas, turning it into like a little public space and maybe having like food trucks there or something, a little walking path maybe. I think it's a cool idea, but they're not really going to go for this. So anyway, like 5 people or 4 people called in to speak specifically on this issue. And the mayor, who's like a big advocate for everybody getting involved in local government, like he's always talking about that in the media. He's like, oh, you got to get more involved. You got to, we need more people to partake in, the government. And, like I always say, nobody cares. Nobody, it's so dull, and it's not going to make a difference, right? As the Stanley Street people, the Stanley Street thing was like the biggest movement against any particular policy that I've seen in Stevens Point, probably since I shouldn't say that, since the community garden that they put up in the Lullaby lot back in 2010. That was one of the biggest too. But since then, it was the Stanley Street thing. What good did it do for all of those people to waste their time? Those people wasted countless hours trying to oppose this, only to have the council turn around and say, we don't care, we're doing it anyway. So the mayor actually seemed pleased this time that people were calling in. And he actually says to them, thank you for your participation in your local government. Yeah, I mean, he's happy, but it's kind of funny that he said that, because it reminded me of like something an algorithm would tell you after you sign up for like a newsletter. Oh, thank you for signing up for this newsletter. I think, honestly, in the future, all of local government is going to be run by these algorithms, and you're gonna put something in like your own digital complaint card, and the algorithm will decide whether or not that it matters to the algorithm, and it'll kick out this little message back to you that says, thank you for participating in your local government. Look, the thing is it really your local government? It's not mine. I feel no connection to the local government on any level whatsoever. So yeah, but I guess people who think in collective terms, I'm an individualist, but people who think in collective terms like to think of these collectives as yours. But if it's everybody's, then it's nobody's, right? That's ultimately what it comes down to. Individuals do not have any power to sway anything that happens in local government. If you're on the opposite side of the people in power, it doesn't matter what you do at all. So that's just, kind of what I think about it. And we see this here too. All these people called in, they took an interest in the city wasting more money on something they really didn't need to waste money on. Didn't matter. The council already had its mind made up. There was no point in calling in. I mean, it's cool that people took time out of the day to do it, but it didn't matter at the end. They weren't going to be convinced by anything, because they already decided it was going to go a certain way. So anyway, yeah, it was a foregone conclusion. It passed. So the city is going to be the proud owner of the Maytake property. So I was watching this live on Monday when it was all taking place. And this is about where I stopped watching it, because it was already like an hour in, and I'm like, I'm going to go read or do something else. I can come back and watch this later. Came back yesterday to finish watching it, and this meeting ran for another 2 hours and 20 minutes. And I'm like, what the hell? There was only like 10 items left on the agenda. How did it run another almost 2.5 hours? Well, I forgot that on the agenda this month was ATV, UTV stuff, where they wanted to legalize allowing these vehicles to ride on some of the roads. And the other thing was, the overnight parking thing. And then I was like, oh my God, it's going to be those two things that just dominate the rest of this. Yeah, and that's what happened. So I'm not going to get too much into it, because most of it'll just bore the hell out of you. But I did sit through it. So so the overnight parking thing. And so our favorite anti-parking person, who is going to show up in every one of the committee meetings related to parking, Nancy Roppy, our paladin of parking, our heroine who's going to keep all the cars off the streets. She comes on, she's going to read another prepared statement. I kind of poked fun at her, because, it always seems like, because she's so angry about everything all the time. And it always comes off like she's reading like a statement to like release hostages or something like that. But yeah, that's kind of what it was. I mean, it was just like, fire and brimstone if we legalize this or if the council passes this. And greedy landlords, she's always taking shots at the greedy landlords. In her mind, somehow they're responsible for a lot of the people who are parking on the street, I guess, because they're over renting, which is BS. And if she took 2 seconds to think about it, she would realize that. But anyway, yeah. So she gets on there and does her ranting and raving for her allotted 5 minutes. And at the end of this, the mayor zings her, which I thought was pretty funny. He basically says, "Thank you, Mrs. Rappi. It's a pleasure as always." And I'll be honest, I burst out laughing when he said that, because like we all want to say that to her, but he's like sitting there and can say that. Like if I was the mayor, I could never be mayor because I would just be too snarky about everything all the time. But that was the first time watching these mind-numbing meetings that I actually burst out laughing. So thank you, Mayor, for bringing me a little chuckle with that. and you can just imagine like Nancy Rappi, like watching this on her Zoom after she gets done and just her blood boiling and not being able to respond in some way. But yeah, whatever. So they took a vote on it. No surprise. Tori Jennings and Cindy Nebel were on Team Nancy, and David Shore comes in to ramble incoherently like he usually does. And it did pass 6-5, so just barely. And this is the first of 2 really close votes in this council meeting. So then they get into discussion on determining acceptable routes for ATVs, UTVs. This came up, again, I talked about this before, but for those who didn't see it, this came up as a result of the state government basically taking no action on legislating this to the municipalities and kind of leaving it open for the municipalities to come up with their own rules for the most part. So during all of this discussion, what it came down to was the people who were opposed to it, the usual suspects, were opposed to it, citing safety reasons, right? So Mary Kneebone and Cindy Nebel were all against it because it's too dangerous for people to just ride these vehicles. Mary Kneebone, she's citing stats that she found online about like 160 people a year die in ATV accidents. Whatever, out of how many hundreds of thousands that actually use them. See, nobody thinks statistically to realize that out of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that use these vehicles, 167 deaths is literally nothing. It's so statistically insignificant. But anyway, that's a big deal for her. Nebel comes out against it basically for the same reason. The only one that had something different to say in opposition was Thomas Leak. His opposition to them being on the road were that they should be insured. They should have insurance, liability insurance, like any other vehicle on the road, which I didn't buy it because I'm thinking, well, I mean, should electric wheelchairs on the road have liability insurance? Should bikes have liability insurance? Should scooters have liability insurance? Should motorized bicycles have liability insurance? No, I don't think so. So anyway, that was his. He didn't even want to have the discussion unless there was the possibility of including, like, mandating insurance for them. So anyway, 2 amendments to this were brought up, one by Cindy Nebel and one by somebody else, but based on Thomas Leak's recommendation of insurance. One was they wanted to put the condition on there that you had to be a licensed driver, and the other one was that you had to be insured. These are 2 separate amendments that were proposed. Both of them got shot down by the city attorney, basically saying that that according to state law, it would be completely unenforceable by the city. So they would just be pointless to even pass those measures relating to ATV use on the road. So it went literally nowhere. Slowinski got on there and he basically said, look, I own an ATV. I belong to an ATV group. I know everything there is to know about ATVs. I've been doing this for years. I'm basically the expert on ATVs and I support this. Well, it doesn't matter, you see, because Mary Kneebone, she has all of her stats and she read some consumer reports that said, well, they may not be that safe. So she was the expert and she came in and decided she was going to correct Slowinski and let him know what the truth about ATVs was. Although I doubt she's ever even seen one in her life. The same with Cindy Nebel, the same with like all of these people. None of them are ATV users. You know, one of the things that pisses me off more than anything else about city government is that they somehow get to claim a right to vote on all these little aspects of people's lives that they have no knowledge about whatsoever. None. And yet they think they should be able to make laws regarding this stuff. I don't think so. Like, I just don't buy into that entire way of thinking about society and how it should be run. But that's what you get. Now, the other two adults on the issue here were Keely Fischler and Mikura Zarazua. The only other two adults in this, well, I mean, you know, Polly Dalton, she voted in favor of this, but she didn't say anything on it. So Keely Fischler's point was, well, look, I mean, can't we just let this happen and see where it goes? And if it becomes a problem, come back later and do something about it? Because obviously this is something people want, all right? Otherwise it wouldn't be before the council right now. So there is a segment of the population that want this. And so her point was, look, we did this with the alcohol outside and everybody freaked. Cindy Nebel promised the apocalypse if we legalize outdoor alcohol, right? Remember this? And nothing happened. Literally nothing happened. And so Keely Fischler was basically saying the same thing about ATVs. Look, we don't know what's going to happen here. So why don't we just let this happen, see where it takes us, and then just go from there? That's a pretty reasonable thing to ask, I think. So, and like I said, the other adult perspective here was Mikura's, and she said, look, you know, I don't like ATVs. Like, to me, they just seem dangerous. But you know what? That's just my own bias. And I know that the people who use ATVs all the time know what they're doing with them. And I think this is just another form of transportation, and we shouldn't be discriminating against certain forms of transportation. You know, why is it that we're going to limit everybody to bikes and cars? Why? Why can't people use these other vehicles? And that was her point. So, you know, Keely and Mikura, you know, props to you guys, because you guys had the only adult perspective that was voiced, besides Slowinski, but the only adult perspectives that were voiced in this meeting on this issue. Anyway, it doesn't matter because it got voted down, because the coalition of council Karens all banded together and decided, oh, this is too dangerous and scary and we don't want people doing this. So they voted it down. So it basically went nowhere. So the whole ATV, UTV thing is kind of up in the air at the moment. So anyway, what else do we got to talk about here? What else happened in this? Man. And, you know, again, everybody spoke on the issue. Just about everybody spoke on the issue. Polly Dalton, as usual, didn't. She doesn't usually, unless she really believes in something. And, you know, again, David Shore rambles incoherently because that whenever he responds to something, that's what he does. That's his MO. And, you know, Chief Zenner basically just looks like he doesn't want to be there at all. And that's how he looks in most of these meetings. He just looks like he wants to go home and not deal with this garbage. And I feel him. I feel him. So yeah, this one was actually another close vote. So the coalition of council Karens did barely win this vote. It was a vote of 5-6. So it'll come up again. I guarantee this will come up again, because I don't think the discussion was settled very well at all. So the next item on the agenda was No Mow May. And I found this interesting. Apparently Makira actually got in contact with a professor over at Lawrence University, that's in Appleton, right? Lawrence University is in Appleton. And he had actually conducted a study in Appleton about the No Mow May, and if that actually brings about more bees, if it actually increases the bee population. And sure enough, it actually does. Apparently, Appleton's been doing this for a couple of years already, and they've seen a boost in the bee population. Pretty cool. So this thing actually does work. It's not just theory or anything. So, and it was during discussion on this that, yeah, I got kind of another chuckle, because like I said in the beginning, because of the blow up that happened in Public Works and the mayor deciding that he was going to strictly abide by Robert's Rules of Order, Jennings decides to come in, and she wants to know if the Parks Department is going to participate in No Mow May, and the mayor just shoots her down. He's just like, well, right now we're talking about whether or not we want to pass this resolution. If you want to ask the Parks Department basically on your own free time, you can do that. But right now we're focused on this. Whereas in the past, there's always been a lot of kind of freewheeling discussion to that end. So I just thought it was funny that the mayor is just like, it's so obvious. He's had it with some of these people, and who can blame him? Like Tori Jennings, I mean, she would grate anybody. And anyway, the mayor's not having it. He's so done with her. And this was approved by everybody. Morrow was the only one who voted against this. I don't know why, because he didn't have any discussion. I would have liked to hear his reasons for why he would vote on it. Anyway, the next thing that came up was the Chapter 30 building code rewrite. And I talked about this when it was in committee, and a lot of people had problems with this one. We got some more phone calls. I guess not as many as the Maytag thing, but there was Stephen Klein that called in. Orrin Jacobson, who I talked about, voicing his concerns when this thing was up in committee. He brought up the aspect of how repair isn't being properly defined, because he's worried that according to the Uniform Dwelling Code, that they're going to rewrite this code, and then it's going to basically amount to you having to get a permit just to change a washer in your sink or something like that. Not quite that minimal, but something very, very minimal. Stephen Klein basically had a lot of really good points that he made. Now, I think he said he was a contractor, or he used to be a contractor. And so I found a lot of what he said to be pretty interesting in this. He talked about how to do basic repairs on your home, you should not need to get permission from the city. If you know Stephen Klein, have him come subscribe to this YouTube channel and the Facebook page, because everything he said in this meeting, I 100% was behind him. He took issue with the fact that you have to have, anytime you do a little repair based on this, you're going to have an inspector walk through your home. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want bureaucrats in my house. Okay. I don't want anybody from the city in my house. All right. Politicians, bureaucrats, you are not allowed in my personal dwelling space. Okay. Part of the reason I will never get a permit to do any kind of repair in my house is because I don't need bureaucrats in my house. I don't want you here. You're not allowed. So he was bringing up the point that when you do get these permits, it's on file with the city. And look, people came on here later on, the usual people like Cindy Nebel. Oh, we need permits because otherwise, how will we know that it was safe? Oh, Mary Kneebone said the same dumb thing too. That's not the point. The point is, I own my house. I am perfectly capable of hiring somebody to do a proper job on anything that needs to be done. I don't need your permission. I'm not asking for your permission, and you're just never going to know about any improvements that I make to my house, inside anyway. Obviously, if it's outside, you're going to take notice, but I'm not asking you my permission. I'm telling all of the bureaucrats in city government right now, you will never have my permission. I will never get a permit, and you're just SOL. There's nothing you can do about that. And the fact, because of the very reason that I don't want you here. So Stephen Klein made, like a Fourth Amendment argument. Look, buddy, as much as I agree with you, politicians and bureaucrats could give two shits about the Fourth Amendment. You are not getting anywhere with that argument. I think it's a good argument. I think you made the case, but you know what? These people don't care. They don't care about amendments and rights. They will determine what your rights are. Mary Kneebone and Cindy Nebel will determine what rights you have, okay? You don't get to do that. And that pesky Constitution isn't going to do that either. So, yeah, and he brought up the fact that there's a lot of contractors that just won't work within the city limits because they don't want to deal with people in the inspections department. They don't want to deal with them. And, well, what can you say? The people that work in that department are going to defend everything that they do, right? So you're not changing any of their minds. But this is just another example of how city government does some very stupid things that ultimately impact the market in such a way that people suffer in some way or another. The other thing that came up was the idea that you would have to get a permit to do any kind, to do a roofing job on your house is insane. And I agree. Anything you do to your own property that does not affect any of your neighbors, like roofing or like adding a back patio or something like that, none of that should have to be run through city government. Okay, ever. Like the fact that there's laws on the book that require you to do that is insane to me. And if you believe that city government needs to grant those permissions for things like roofing or deck building or anything else, you are a crazy person. I'm sorry. I just don't know what else to say about you. You're not firing upstairs. Okay. You're an insane person. So Beveridge comes, one of the things that came up is that people were concerned, this Orrin Jacobson and Stephen Klein were concerned that the language would be construed in the future by future inspectors to make things more difficult than they have to be, and basically use this rewrite to justify what they're doing. And, Beveridge comes in and he's like, oh, no. That's never going to happen. You couldn't possibly construe it that way, blah, 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 blah. Where is he coming from? Basically, every law that's ever been written has been construed in a way to give the maximum power to those who are doing the interpreting. Every single law that's ever been written. Like even the Constitution, the so-called law of the land. Nobody abides by that anymore. That thing's been reinterpreted in so many different ways. And if anything should be as clear as day, it's that document. And yet politicians and bureaucrats still find a way to reinterpret things to mean something completely different from what they intended. And the fact that the city attorney just seems to be completely ignorant about how history actually operates when it comes to law, and he's just going to sit there and say, oh, don't worry about it, they're never going to do that, is crazy to me. Like, he didn't even offer any safeguards to the people that had concerns, the contractors who actually had concerns about this, who know the business, who know how these things work, who have dealt with all the roadblocks that city governments put in their way. They know more about this than anybody. And the fact that Beveridge just shoots them down with the, oh no, that'll never happen. Really? Really, guy? You're not even going to offer them some kind of, well, okay, maybe we should have an amendment to this that says, this definition for repairs only applies to blah, 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 and not to blah, 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 what you're concerned about, right? That would be the right thing to do. No interest in doing this whatsoever. So mark my words, this will come back to haunt people someday. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in 5 years, but people like Orrin Jacobson and Stephen Klein, they're absolutely right. They know what they're talking about. In the future, somebody will construe it and interpret it in such a way as to make life miserable for them. Polly Dalton raised an issue on this and said that she had the rewrite and the original side by side, and indeed they did change the definition of what constitutes a repair. Okay, that is not good. That's not a good sign of things to come. That says to me that they know exactly what they're doing, and they very much intend to impose this on people somewhere down the line when everybody's kind of forgotten about it, because that's how they operate. It's disgusting to watch this happen before your very eyes, to know exactly how things are going to pan out in the future, and to have dullards like Beveridge just say, oh no, we're just going to ignore all the lessons of history. We're different this time. It's never going to happen. Come on, guy. Really? So I found that extremely annoying. Another thing I found annoying was the mayor coming in and being like, hey, Polly Dalton, so exactly what's your relationship to this Orrin Jacobson dude? Basically, she had to get on there and admit that the guy was her partner. She's got to like start divulging personal details about herself to have an opinion on this matter. Are you kidding me? I thought that was pretty disgusting too. And, you know, I called out Melissa Johnson months and months ago for basically doing the same thing over the Airbnb thing, because Melissa Johnson came in and she was like, hey, Polly Dalton, how many Airbnbs do you... These old boomers need to just go away, okay? And just leave the rest of us alone. We don't need this. This is insane. And you know what? Polly Dalton, I'm sorry that they treat you like this on the city council, because there's no reason for this. I don't need to know that you're involved with Orrin Jacobson. I don't need to know that as a member of the public. That's none of my damn business, okay? That's none of the mayor's damn business. Just Mayor Melissa Johnson, all you people just shut up about people's personal lives, okay? Leave it out of the public. That's disgusting. So anyway, Polly Dalton, I'm sorry that happened to you. I think it's stupid. You shouldn't have to account for stuff like that. And again, you know, Nebel, Kneebone, defending permits, whatever. So everybody just kind of like rubber stamped this thing. Polly Dalton was the only one that said no to it. At the very, very least, I think they could have postponed taking a vote on this. At the very least, to give other people in this line of work to let them know what's happening with this. But they didn't do that because, you know, Mary Kneebone and Cindy Nebel, they know more than people who work in this industry. They don't. Anyway, so what else? Some stuff that really doesn't pertain to anybody. Now, like making repairs in your own house, which is essentially illegal now. And if not technically illegal right now, it will be shortly. Just wait and see. Yeah, so the final thing in this city council meeting was departing remarks from Cindy Nebel. And I mean, I'll be honest, it brought a tear to my eye. It really did, because I was thinking, you know what? Finally, you're finally leaving. Thank God. And I mean, her departing remarks on here were, you know, a lot of fluffy language about, I got involved because I really wanted to improve our neighborhoods and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. All you did was make life miserable for a lot of people, Cindy Nebel. Thanks, but no thanks. The mayor gave her a plaque on behalf of the people of Stevens Point. Let me be the first to say I had nothing to do with that plaque. I would never have spent the money to pitch in for a plaque like that. It's funny that people in city government just really have this, they have this Jesus complex about what they do on city government. Like, what you do is so important, and you're serving the public, and, you know, you're this wonderful public servant who does all these wonderful things. You know, in some cases that's true. Okay. I believe Jeremy Slawinski really is trying to serve the public. He's trying to keep these wolves from basically eating everything that's yours at bay. That's what he's doing. I think Makira Zarazua is there to serve the public. I think she really cares about her constituency. She really wants to know what people need to succeed in their own lives. I believe she really is there to serve the public. Cindy Nebel is there for her own selfish agendas, and that's what it comes down to. She got involved because she wanted to make everybody do what she wanted them to do, and she wanted the power to do that. She doesn't give two shits about your life or the neighborhoods or anything else. She wanted to make sure that your fence was properly painted. She wanted to make sure that your garbage cans were brought up, you know, exactly within 12 hours after the garbage goes out. She wanted to make sure that you can't park on your driveway with just one tire even off into your lawn. That's her contribution. That's her legacy. It sucks. Good riddance. Don't ever run again, please. Keep everything at home. Keep everything in your personal life now. That's my part. That's my remarks on Cindy Nebel's departure. Yeah, so following that were just the reorganization meetings, which there's nothing to talk about. That's just like a rubber stamp affair. The mayor comes in, he says, these are the people I want to appoint to these committees. Oh, but there was more drama in this too. Tori Jennings again, surprise. She comes in and she's like, I found it notable that I was removed from Public Works. I didn't know she was removed from Public Works. I actually found that kind of shocking too. And again, I think it probably comes back to last week. It didn't all come back to last week. I'm sure there's stuff that's been bubbling under the surface for a long time. Anyway, she was removed from this. But then she goes on to complain about how Slawinski every year is appointed to the 3 most popular committees. Who cares? Like, what does that have to do with you being removed from Public Works? You're complaining at that point. Okay. It doesn't matter. And then she says, while others get relegated to peripheral committees, because she didn't want to say less important. She said that she said that on the stream. Well, I don't want to say that they're less important, but they're definitely less important. So whatever. Yeah, they are less important, frankly. Pretty much all of city government is very unimportant. So I don't know what her hang up for saying that was, I guess. Yeah, anyway, that was it. The final piece was Tori Jennings complaining about being removed from a committee. Good, remove her from more committees. Remove her from the city council. I know the mayor can't do that, but Cindy Nebel's gone. We should celebrate. That leaves just, you know, a couple more people on the county, Tori Jennings and David Shore, and yeah, to a lesser degree, Melissa Johnson. But, you know, if those three now get removed, congratulations. Oh, one thing while I'm thinking about Cindy Nebel here, when she was giving her departing remarks, she spoke really highly of her replacement, Ginger Keemer, who is now a part of the council. She's now the District 3 person. She spoke pretty highly of her, which leads me to believe that maybe I'm not so sure about Ginger Keemer. You know, I hope she's much better than Cindy Nebel was. I hope she's not a Cindy Nebel clone, but who knows? We'll watch her. We'll see what she does in the coming months. Other than that, I think that's about all I had to say. Oh, it was such a long meeting. Almost 3.5 hours. 3.5 hours I'm never getting back. I summarized it all for everybody in just over an hour. So there you go. No stream tomorrow. I'll be back next Friday, though, for sure. Film project this weekend, so I can't do it. Other than that, everybody, cheers. Have a fantastic weekend. And don't forget to tune in to Create's 48-hour film contest to see what my team has come up with. I'm sure we'll come up with something pretty interesting. So, all right, I'm going to shut this thing down. So, great weekend, everybody. Bye.